Hello, folks. Welcome back to Lady Vinyl Gaming here on this Tuesday, just in time for Story Hour. The viewer points are active for the first time in our uh, Story Hour time, so this will probably be very interesting. We have a few added in, and we'll see what happens. But thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday. If you enjoy this, we also have two other streams that we do here on Twitch. They're all kind of very different, honestly. I mean, they all involve video games. Um, this one, this is all you will see. It's me basically reading the story, doing different voices for the different characters. It is a choose your own adventure kind of game. It's commonly referred to as a text based game, and that's what we're doing today. Fridays, we do a group game, a multiplayer game. We call it Frightful Fridays because we try to do the scary games. Last time we did Dead by Daylight. This time coming up, we're actually going to be doing Phasmophobia. We have a friend of ours joining us in, who is also a streamer, and I believe she's intending to also stream at the same time. So you're more than welcome to join us for that. That's going to be at 7:45 p.m. on Friday. That's Eastern U.S. time. On Sundays, it's just a sit and play game. Um, I we rotate between one of two things. It's either just me myself playing Dragon Age Origins. We're going to go through the whole Dragon Age series. Um, or if my friend Amanda Paskey is here, she will join me and we will do Legos DC Supervillains. But we'll both be in the same shot. She actually sits next to me, and we play the two games together. So that's the offerings that we have here on uh, the Twitch channel. We also have a we also use the platform OnlyFans, where we also do video games. We play a different video game there. Um, it's called No Place Like Home. It's about what happens in the not too distant future when civilizations put so much trash onto the Earth that they move to Mars. And that is done very similar to our regular Sunday stream, in that I am there. You will actually see my face, and at least at OnlyFans, a whole lot more of my body. Um, that is a free thing you can sign up for. You do have to subscribe to it, but it doesn't cost anything. We are working on other offerings that will be our premium offerings, and they will be costing an amount, but that's in the future. And those are going to be photographs and different things that do not have to do with video games. We are still working on it because it's taking a bit of time, and also too, it's not what I do as my full-time gig. I do have another job where I actually earn my living. If you do enjoy anything here on Twitch, and it's only the Twitch content only, it is all available on my YouTubes. You're more than welcome to go there. I am almost 100%, I am 99.98% certain that uh, up to now, all of the videos have gone live on YouTube. Um, I do set them up in playlists according to whatever game they uh, are concerning. So all of the Story Hour, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest has its own playlist. Dragon Age Origins has its own playlist. When I played the Untitled Goose Game, that had its own playlist. When I did uh, each of the two Vampire the Masquerade story hours, Coteries of New York and Shadows of New York, those two had their own playlists. And when I was streaming the game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which is an action-based game. It's not text-based. Um, that is also on YouTube's uh, with its own playlist. So you're more than welcome to go there and enjoy the content there. Uh, so last time we were doing Heart of the Forest, we had called out and learned. Well, we had been called out about being a werewolf. And we had learned more about the other werewolves, and I believe we had to make a decision. Um, please wait. Back to the beginning. I am sitting on a bus. The sun streaming through the windows is making it hard to see. The narrow road cuts through a dense old forest. My mind wanders. I remember doing something important, walking among the trees, looking for something, losing something I loved, gaining something unwanted. But then I'm fully awake, and the memories scatter away. We're almost there, says Anya. I did some searching. She looks at me from over her phone. And this place is and this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe. I know, right? I smile. I can't. I'm, nab- I'm not able to finish. I start to cough. We have a lot more health than we do willpower right now. Hey, Tally, thanks for the like. Uh, Alright. I'm not able to finish. I start to cough. My throat is sore. My lungs hurt. Uh, Anya! I turn to her. She looks at me, worried. You should drink something. Here. She pulls a bottle from her backpack and gives it to me. I take a sip and feel something dry and acrid in my mouth. And then it starts to move. I spit it out and see thousands of small spiders leaving my mouth. Threads of silk cover me, the seat, and everything around us. I try to scream, but they gag me the moment I open my mouth. A few seconds later, I'm covered in cobwebs, unable to move. I hear a hiss. Then slowly, a long, dark, bloody shape comes out of Anya's eye socket, pushing her eye out. A black snake that reeks of rotten meat, acid, and oil. Don't fight, Mia. You're already mine, it says, just like your grandpa. And then it kisses me. Chapter 5. The Plan. Loose ends. I wake up in my bed in the B&B and for a moment thought the whole werewolf business had been a dream. Then I hear muffled giggling, look up, and saw Anya and Bartek looking at me from the other bed. You caught us, but I thought you'd stay with your German friends a little bit longer, said Bartek, embarrassed. We knew you were all right, Anya chimed in. And what was with you sneaking in through the window in the middle of the night naked? She raised her eyebrow. I did some crazy things back home, but I've never partied that hard. Yeah, I got startled by a stray dog way back, panicked, shapeshifted, and ruined my clothes again. There was so much to talk about. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know where to start. Are you all right? I asked. I was worried about you. Yeah, said Anya, scratching her head. After we were separated in the forest, I got lost, and Bardic found me, and we ended up here. They were telling me what they thought was true. They had no recollection. They had no recollection of seeing werewolves. So Pat was right. The human mind couldn't cope with seeing a Krynos, and when the delirium ended, the subconsciousness patched the holes in their memory with something rational. "But how are you feeling?" asked Anya. How was I? "I'm all right. Sorry for disappearing so suddenly," I said, because what else could I say? "I got lost in the forest." Technically, that part wasn't a lie. "Then I stumbled on the activists, and I kinda got carried away." I packed my bag in silence. I felt a rift growing between me and Anya, and I felt a sudden urge to tell her everything. I couldn't tell her the truth. I was a guru, and I had a sacred duty to protect the veil hiding us from the mortal eyes. But I could tell her something. "I learned something important about myself," I said, "and I have to follow it for a while. Sorry, and I have to follow it for a while. Sorry for the sudden change of plans." I sighed and continued packing. "So you are leaving?" asked Bardic. "What about the forest?" I shrugged. Whatever the answer was, it was now Maya the werewolf's problem. Maya the student was dead. "Let us know when you figure it out," said Bardic. "We'll be waiting." Anya hugged me. I mumbled something, took my bag, and left. Everything according to plan. I dropped my bags into camp and ran through the plan one more time. They expected me to act like a theurge, but we'd also discussed other plans, both more mundane. Alright, so Wolves Den in town is not a choice. We're Beatles, the Barrows. Um. Alright, Tally, if you're paying attention, which one of these three would you do? Would you go with Places of Power, Rare Beetles, or the Barrows? I'm going to let you decide. Hopefully, you're still watching. Because I'm going to be honest, uh, all three of them have their bonuses. I like the idea of the spirits and the rituals. Like doing tricks and being kind of crafty. Um, Beatles, okay. I also like the whole justice and retribution. All right. Rare Beetles. Ragabash, tricks and subterfuge. The Beatles. "Let's go through the plan again, shall we?" Pat put down her tablet and looked at me. The plan was simple. Trick the woodworkers into entering a strictly protected reserve and cause an Trick the woodworkers into entering a strictly protected reserve and cause an incident with international repercussions. The plan had its risks, but at that moment, we had no other option. Ooh. "I have a contact in the press," I said, thinking of Erica, which is why I picked this, because I know that I had contacts in the press. Terrible idea, Kim shook their head. Just ask Pat to post a video online. I asked Kim what the problem was. The plan seemed solid. It's personal. Erica was my sister, they sighed. Then she got jealous that I changed and she didn't. We had a falling out. Now she stalks me and I just don't trust her. Okay. I hadn't seen that coming. Thanks for sharing, and I appreciate the warning. I hugged Kim, and we went to talk with Pat about the video. After that, I needed to engage a third party. When I told Lisa that I needed to sell some bullshit to the loggers, she almost smiled. I'll give you a package for them that'll let you get closer and throw some words around, she added. I added some extra kick to it to make them more reckless. She gave me a plastic bag with 3 bottles of her special moonshine clicking inside. I needed a local connection, so I called Bardic, and we went there together. I needed to plant a story about a planned sabotage. There's this old pine tree, I said, making sure they heard me talking. Lots of pines, actually. We could chain ourselves to them or hammer spikes into them to break the chainsaws. I could see that the loggers believed every bit of it. There was only one thing left to do. Pat was like me, always the one for mischief, so she had no problem telling her colleagues that the loggers were going to a protected area where an endangered beetle lived. She even offered to go with them. It took a few days, but finally the plan was set in motion. The scene had been set, and the curtain went up. The shit hits the fan. I underestimated how eager the loggers would be after a few drinks. They managed to kill 2 trees before the scientists arrived, and the whole place looked like a battlefield. What a clusterfuck. Pat and I were set up behind the bushes, watching the scene unfold. The whole operation hinged on me not losing it. I took a deep breath to calm down. I nodded at Pat, and she started recording. One of the men was yelling at the scientists. We're doing you a favor cutting down these woodworm-infested trees. There are no spruce bark beetles here, the scientists shouted in outrage. This is one of the last habitats of Berberis splendens, the most magnificent of the European woodland beetles. You won't tell us what to do in our forest, the logger pointed his finger at the scientists. I made sure we were recording, and I let the row continued. This species is listed on Appendix 2 of the Berne Convention and Annex 2 and 4 of the EU Habitats Directive, shouted the scientist, who was now a striking shade of vermilion. The logger's face reddened. Say that again, he said, slowly taking up a step forward. I saw one of the others reaching for an axe. They were drunk, but that level of aggression didn't make any sense. Something else was going on. Using up the last of my willpower. This is going to be bad. I opened my eyes to things humans couldn't see. The stench of alcohol and anger got stronger, and I saw it. A red mist hovered over the men. Yellow, angry eyes shone in the cloud. It was clinging to the men, but a few wisps still lingered in the bottle on the ground. Lisa's moonshine. Gaia, damn it. Whatever spirit magic Lisa had used to make the moonshine stronger, it was feasting on the loggers. I looked to Pat for advice, but I saw her muscles bulging as she tried to control her own rage. I was Lupus, the wolf form. I doubled down in pain. My arms and legs cracked and twisted. My skull fractured and reset itself in a different shape. Fragments of bones crawling under the skin. My skin was rippling and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When the pain subsided, I was Lupus, a wolf, seeing the world in smells and sounds. The world went gray, and scents bloomed around me. I noticed the wolf mother watching me from the shadows. Silence fell over the clearing as I jumped onto one of the fallen trees. Then I howled. I howled for the trees, for the Puchka, for the humans who'd forgotten who their mother was, for my family, and for everyone who died in the forest. The patron howled with me. The patron howled with me. I could hear her just beside me, adding her grief to mine. It is time, the wolf mother howled. Kill them all. I have no willpower. I can't do the acting for the camera. I just stood there watching them until something changed in their eyes. Their shoulders slumped, and they ran away, disappearing among the trees. Pat stopped recording. That was perfect, she said. That evening, we sat with Pat, watched the edited recording one more time, and then uploaded it. It was time to bask in our victory. And a victory it was. Thousands of comments, tweets, clips from the stream circling the internet, GIFs. Oh shit. We poured her special moonshine into small glasses. What's in the moonshine? I asked. The loggers almost fucked us up. I bound anger spirits to the distillation column, she shrugged. It's safe for us, gives it a nice little kick, but I didn't know how humans would react. I sat back, let them drink, and just enjoyed the evening. It was a good night. A moment of triumph. I couldn't wait for the SEPT meeting that morning. Creating bad PR for the loggers was my rite of passage, and I knew that I did great. I couldn't believe that I made it so far. We met soon after sunrise, on the same clearing where I woke up for the first time as a guru. Lisa looked at us all and smiled. Our patrons were looking at her expectantly, so she stepped towards the center of the clearing. I am the third of this sept, and I'm here to make sure we do things the right way. I held my breath. She turned to me, and I continued to hold my breath. Maya, come forth. Are you a cub who seeks recognition as an adult? I am, I answered solemnly. Are you an applicant to a tribe? Lisa asked again. I am, I answered. Who speaks for the cub? Lisa looked at her septmates. I do. Pat stepped forward. I'm Electric Beetle of the Glasswalkers, Ragabush of the Winter Weasel Pack. I observed the cub on her mission, and I'm here to tell the story. I guess they all had secret werewolf names. It made sense. A new life demanded a new name. Would I also have to take a new name? Has the cub passed her challenge? I knew how it all happened, but I held my breath nonetheless. She succeeded, was the answer. She fought bravely against overwhelming odds, and she's succeeded. Have you chosen your name? Lisa turned to me. My new secret name. Suddenly I remembered my grandfather talking about his old friends. He never used their real names. They were always Thunder or Gray or Needle. I'd always thought it was a gorilla thing, some kind of war names. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. How to capture my whole life, my aspirations, my personality, my heritage, in one name. I cleared my throat. Uh, Tally, I'm gonna guess that it's you that's still watching. I I will say I'm at a toss up between Mist or Enigma. Which of those two do you think it should be? If it's not Tally that's watching, the person that is watching, between those two, Mist or Enigma, which name should I go with? Because I just think Pine is just too dull of a name, and Wichura, which is Polish for Gale, evidently, um, has a good sense to it, but uh, from somebody in roller derby, I know somebody who took the name Gale, and it was a great name for them. Last one, Enigma. Okay, thanks. It was a great name for them. It's just it's not me. So Enigma, a mystery. My name is Enigma, I answered, thinking how I answered, thinking how I was a mystery, even to myself. As for the tribe, choosing the tribe was another matter. I don't remember the different ones. Wait a minute. Can I? Is this the button? Character sheet. No, that's not what I want. Right? Does it have the? No, it's dead. That's true. Process neutral. Family's complicated. Sympathetic, friendly. Winter Weasel's the only one that's. But okay, so that's not what I'm looking for. Is it in here? Nope. And I think that's what gets us back. Yeah, oh, we're almost done. It's summer already. Your health is your life. Willpower is that. Rage is that. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm 87% of the way through the game. Dang it. Okay, you know what? We're going to do the cheap thing. And I'm going to actually look it up. Okay. Flurry. Black Fury. Oh, okay. Where's one of the tribes found? The matriarchs of the Guru. Oh, okay. The Black Fury is the all female group. Um, the Glasswalkers are the technology folks, and then Bonars. Bonars, the scavengers, and the survivors. So yeah, okay, it definitely the Black Flurry, Black Fury. I knew I should join a tribe, but I chose it at the beginning. Now it was just a formality. I became a black furry, just as I wanted. Only one thing remains to end the ceremony, and to make me a full-fledged guru. I had to join a pack. And that's the thing. As my fate had already been tied with the Wolf Mother, I chose her as my patron, and joined Olga's pack. According to ancient rites, Lisa painted the mystical glyph of the tribe on my sternum. It disappeared after a moment, but whenever I closed my eyes, I could feel its warm touch between my breasts. Enigma of the Black Furries, Thurge of the Morning Wolf Mother Pack. Welcome to our sept, she said solemnly. Then she howled. Howls rose up toward the sky. They sang about ancient laws of war, status, and secrecy. I remembered only a few. Combat the worm wherever it dwells and whenever it breeds. Submit to those of higher station. Respect those beneath you. The veil shall not be lifted. I threw my head back and howled with my sept. I was a cub no more. I was ready to tell my own stories, to earn my own place in the pack, to howl my own songs. We're only halfway through. We are going to keep going. Chapter 6, The Storm. Dust to dust. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalt melts, the grass withers, and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at the funeral. It was moving. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss, looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists. Something tightened in my chest. The body of a hunter had been found in the forest. The circumstances of their death were unclear. It was our doing, my doing, and the death had tipped the scales. Since the deaths, I'd started seeing shadowy figures, their faces flickering in the corner of my eye. Were they just figments of my imagination, or my own pack of hungry spirits following me, waiting for my mistake. I could feel the tension seething around me. This death, this funeral, had pushed the community, already weary and frightened by the recent disappearances in the forest, to the edge. The press had swarmed to the funeral like flies. I could hear them squawking about how both sides of the conflict were escalating the situation. The police were watching the crowd with disinterest as they leaned lazily against the trees. It had become political. Suddenly, Puszka Balawaski had become a politically charged and hottest place to be in Poland. And it wasn't only local politicians and activists from both sides who'd caught wind of the commotion. The Minister of Environment himself had driven to Balawashi to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down, and the crowd stirred. Everyone started lining up. Everyone started lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put a flower on the grave. I felt someone join me. "Just look at them," Lisa said. "Just look at them," said Lisa, joining me. "Nobody wants us here. They fear us, but would never admit that." "They have their reasons," I sighed. "I wish things could be different." "They would want us gone even if we weren't the guru," she scoffed. "From the outside, we're activists fighting for the Puchka, but for the locals, we're just strangers barging in and telling them what to do with their lives." Which is fairly accurate. "Well, we are strangers barging in and telling them what to do," I shrugged. "But sometimes you need a stranger to see what you have before your very eyes." Nevertheless, she was right. The crowd was not happy seeing us there, and the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I watched in disbelief as the priest handed him the mic. He wasn't someone you'd call a good speaker. He repeated some platitudes, but it was clear he'd only come to show his face and tighten the leash on the local logging companies. The crowd listened, silent. I realized the conflict was only going to escalate. But they didn't realize the proposal to stop the logging was already being discussed in the EU Parliament. Victory was within our Victory was within our grasp. The last stand. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless, and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs, bark, and tree sap. Insects buzzed lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. The day was stifling as we set up the protest. The whole clearing was decorated with banners, and we all had our placards. The banner we'd hung on the National Park headquarters the week before was just a warm-up. "Wood is the enemy of the forest," was our main slogan, but there were many more. I'm gonna go with greed. "The Puchka is not a commodity," declared my sign. "You couldn't put a price tag on a 200-year-old tree, but that wasn't going to stop them trying. There were so many of us. People kept coming to the camp, asking questions, looking for ways to help. Students, activists, even Greenpeace with banners reading 'Stop Logging' and 'Respect EU Law.' The Puchka was watching us. Every time a gust of wind was bringing the wet smell of the forest to my nostrils, I felt her strong, steadfast presence. She knew that we were doing everything in our power to save her. I could feel the immense presence of the forest, whose life was a myriad of smaller lives interconnected into one superorganism. And then I looked at us and them and smiled bitterly, because I realized that both sides of the conflict saw the others as the sickness and themselves as the cure. The pressure was almost palpable, and tempers were flaring. Everyone knows what to do, asked. Everyone knows what to do? Olga asked, looking at my pack. I'll keep the security guards occupied, nodded Lisa. And I'll guard the Puchka's perimeter, growled Daniel. The weasels were in their positions among the protesters as agreed. That left the cops to me. I'll keep my eyes on the cops, I said, and we'll make sure that the activists are safe. Yeah, that's the plan. Oops. Yeah, that's the plan, Olga nodded with a bitter expression. The cops were huddling. The cops were nervous, huddling in groups and shouting at each other and everyone who was in their way. They clearly didn't want to be here, or to be there. It was apparent they were waiting for something. It reached a boiling point when the minister arrived for a photo op. I looked at it as a good sign. We could use his presence to our advantage in more ways than one. He posed and played the great statesman while the bored journalists took photos and asked prearranged questions. Just another day in the media circus. In hindsight, you could argue that what happened next set a chain of events in motion that had life-changing consequences for many. But at that moment, I didn't know that. I was too overwhelmed to even think about the consequences. There were too many people around me, too many unknowns, too much at stake. The members of my sept had already moved to their positions, and I also had my part to play. Let's try it. We have him on the spot, I wondered. I'd like to try again and ask him to stop the logging. Olga raised her eyebrow. If you think there's any sense in talking to them, she smirked, now's the fucking time. She grabbed me by the elbow and literally dragged me across the clearing to where the minister and his people were standing. I've got this, I said bluntly, yanking my arm free. Did not realize that's what that choice was going to do. Just for clarity. I know what to do, I snapped at Olga. Stop treating me like a cub. You can't do anything, just watch. Minister! Minister! She yelled. Oh, that was her yelling. Minister! Minister! She yelled. Do you have a moment to talk about what's really going on in the forest? I caught his gaze. He looked at us coldly, like we were vermin. His eyes were distinctly dark and lifeless, like a shark, I thought suddenly. No, he said, smiling. We don't talk to terrorists. I put my hand on Olga's shoulders and felt how tense she was. Her muscles vibrated, resisting the change. He's not worth it, I whispered. We'll find another way. The activists, human and werewolves alike, listened as we told them what had happened. The atmosphere was tense. We prepared ourselves for the worst case scenario. Okay, let's move! Move it, people! I heard someone shout. Move it, people! Move it! You know what to do! And they did. There was a lot of laughter and friendly pushing, chains clinking, and some people darted up to the trees to seat themselves in the branches. We're going to do this because I only have one willpower left. I helped to form the human chain. Hey, I heard. Get those arms behind you. That's it. Attaboy. It hurts, moaned a man's voice. Next time do some yoga beforehand, huh? That's it, people. Open your hearts so you can hold your wrists behind your backs. So I locked my wrists. I threaded my arms through the arms of the people to my left and right, and then grabbed my wrists behind my back. It was tight on my shoulders, hot, and very sweaty. We sat down, one long human chain, and watched loggers and police as they approached, and then stopped. The sun shone, and it was calm, almost serene. The talks started there and then. I could see that the minister was an apt politician, that he could smell a deal for himself in it all, but I didn't really care. We'd gotten what we wanted. We started to talk. Peace talks. When the talks started, we weren't alone. After the live stream with the Beatles, the loggers had attracted a lot of negative press. People had been moved and had started coming to our camp looking for ways to help out. So we started talking, and it became big. I didn't know what tipped the scales in the end. The press, the international attention, the local interests coming together, our passion. But the talks weren't easy. Finally, an agreement was within our reach. The state forests, the woodworkers, the local population, ecologists, scientists, activists, everyone wanted something. At least we'd managed to trick the loggers into cutting trees in a strict reserve, and the footage was captured. Gave us an upper hand. I was by no means an expert, but I wanted to play my part in the proceedings. I kept out of sight and acted behind the scenes. There was a lot of uncertainty, and I hoped my spiritual approach would help to keep the hope alive. The talks went on and on. Everyone at the scene had their own opinion and their own point of view, and I had mine. In the middle of it all, of course, the spruce bark beetle. How could something so small cause such a gigantic uproar? The beetle had always been a part of the forest ecosystem, pointed out one of the ecologists. But the recent droughts made the spruce more susceptible than ever, the foresters countered. We have to cut down the trees to stop a total disaster. I saw one problem with this approach. They were cutting down trees that had already been dead. To stop the spread, they'd have to target trees that were freshly infected. Their approach was just ineffective. You fetishize the forest, scoffed one of the officials. People cultivated it for hundreds of years and cannot survive without our help. He's right. You wanted to take our forest from us, a group of locals attacked the activists. You're not from here, and you tell us how to live our lives. They looked at the Puchka as if it was just yet another state-owned commercial forest. But it wasn't. If they had to change their lifestyle to save this unique ecosystem. Maybe they should. Opinions clashed, tempers flared, but eventually new constructive ideas started to emerge. At least one of them caught my attention. There was a recurring idea to make all forests in the area a part of the WtA National Park. The logging would be impossible, but there would be much more money from tourism. It was a long and a hot day. I rubbed my eyes. I was so tired I could barely keep them open. My head was spinning. I had plenty of health. But I kept going. What was a little heat stroke when so much was at stake? Of course, they had to make it dramatic. There were cameras, there were lights, and the negotiations lasted all day long. We reached the first draft of the agreement, literally, at sunset. I had no doubt they'd only decided to stop the logging because they realized there was something in it for them. But at the moment, I just looked at the sky and laughed. I felt overwhelming relief, and then my exhaustion caught up with me. I found a quiet spot, sank to the ground, and fell asleep. Epilogue. Quiet before the storm. It's the epilogue, so we're going to finish this up. The next morning, cheering of the crowd woke me up. We'd won. The Puchka was safe, at least for the time being. People were excited, antsy, full of emotions. If the loggers hadn't left, they probably would have charged at them. But to my disappointment, now there was no one to fight, so we partied to blow off steam instead. Soon we were all dancing, talking, singing, and in some cases, making out in the shadows. I had to stop someone from making a fire. I mean, for fuck's sake, we were in the middle of the forest during a drought. But my friends didn't join in the festivities. They just sat on the logs, looking at the humans with weary eyes. I found my pack. We sat in the shadows, far from the humans. "Look at them," murmured Olga. "Loud, messy, stupid. Tomorrow this place will look worse than if we'd let them do the logging." "Look on the bright side. The trees are still standing," I smiled. We'll pick up the trash tomorrow." "I'm not here to pick up their trash," growled Olga, but there was a warmer glint in her eyes as she looked at the trees we'd saved. Olga looked at them for some time. "Maybe with time they'll turn this energy into something more useful. We'll have to wait and see." I wasn't sure if I shared her optimism. Time would tell who was right. Under the trees. We gathered in the clearing in which I'd first woken up as a guru. Lisa stood in the middle of the clearing, the wolf and the weasel by her side. "Olga, honey," Lisa said, looking at the black furry, "it is time to decide the sep's fate." Olga nodded. There was a sadness in her eyes. "Cornell was right," she said. "He was right and I killed him." That night was long and full of hope. Olga talked with Kim and Pat for a very long time, and decided to stay in Balawachki. Maybe they saw hope in Olga being able to admit to her mistakes. Lisa and our patrons made sure that we did right by Guru law, and the Sep matters were resolved. But it didn't cover everything that had happened that summer, though, so some consequences would have to unravel with time. Later, Daniel introduced me to the wild wolf packs living in the forest. We would spend a lot of time with them searching for the lost guru cubs we hoped were out there. Despite everything that had happened, Anya and Bartek were still alive. They had a summer fling they would both remember with a smile. We would disappear from each other's lives slowly, our paths too different to keep up with each other. But it was all still ahead of me. For now, the first chapter of my new life was coming to an end. I breathed in the smell of the forest. I sat under the oak tree with my back against its trunk. I saw a squirrel running away with an acorn. The forest didn't care, I thought. Not really. It just did what it did best. Grow. That was what the forest really cared about. The clearing was empty and full of sunlight. The harvesters were gone, leaving the scars of their tracks behind. People were cleaning up the campsite, making plans to turn the temporary protest site into a permanent tent town. The air was sweet, and the smell of coming rain. The upturned soil smelled of turf and the sweet aroma of decay. There would be a storm later that day. I could feel it. A faint, sharp layer of electricity surrounded by the I could feel it. A faint, sharp layer of electricity surrounded the wetness. I smiled. I liked my new sense of smell. "This is not the end," said the ash-gray wolf. "I assume you know that." Of course I knew it was just a momentary break, a truce that both sides needed to regroup and reinforce. "Yeah, I know," I sighed, looking around. There was a squirrel somewhere. I could smell it. I wanted to chase it, to run, to feel the thrill of adrenaline rushing through my veins. It mocked me from the branches above, squeaking curses in its squirrel tongue. I couldn't see it. My arms and legs cracked and twisted. My changed shape, fragments of bones crawling under the skin. My skin was rippling and sprouting fur. I growled and thrashed. Then I was a wolf, seeing the world in smells and sounds, part of a wolf pack, the perfect animal. So I ran, just for the thrill of it. Oh. So evidently the protests of the logging of the Balawiczki forest took place in 2016. It was real. Or that part of it was real. Um, and it's what inspired the game. However, as always, all characters and events depicted in this game are entirely fictitious. This is going to take us back to the beginning screens. Yeah. Okay. I am going to let the credits roll. I want to thank you all for joining me today. This is... Oh, wow. This actually... Yes, ended up being an hour, which is good. Because we have reached the end, we're actually going to take the rest of this month off. We'll be back in September for Story Hour. Story Hour is the only thing taking a break. Actually, turn this down a little bit. Yeah, Story Hour is going to take a break. I will be back in September. Let me give you a date. We'll be back September 6th with a new story. It's gonna be one of the Vampire the Masquerade stories. I haven't decided exactly which one yet because I am looking for some art from a friend who I have commissioned. But yeah, if you liked this, though, we will be doing a Friday, Frightful Friday. We're doing Phasmophobia this week. And Sunday we'll be doing our regular stream. Uh, Let me see, because I have actually somebody I know streaming. Yep, and she is still streaming. Um, we're going to raid my friend Ruby Hart. They are an amazing person. I do hope you join me for this. Um, hashtag Lady Vinyl Raid. Um, she will probably not be surprised at all by this. Um, but but yeah, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.